Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and I'll be making my very first disc-bound planner notebook. Let me give you a quick little flip through just so that you can see where everything is headed. I've got this clear pocket on the inside front and back cover, which has been laminated just on the one side. And this is going to be a really simple planner because it's not meant to be sort of a weekly planner or a daily planner. I've just got a very simple 2-page monthly spread, and I plan to use this to just keep track of my crafting projects and videos. And on the back here I've got this pen loop which doubles as my elastic closure. So my thinking is that I'll probably only keep maybe 2, maybe 3 months worth of notes, and because it's disc bound, I can just continue to add and remove pages as needed. My cover is going to be 6 3/4 inches wide by 9.5 inches tall, and that's because my pages on the inside, I'm just taking a US letter page and cutting it in half. That way I can have just a very efficient use of copy paper, which is mostly what will fill this because I want a lot of blank pages so that I can brainstorm and keep notes. And all I did was just played around with some templates just to see what size works well. I knew I wanted a pen loop, so I wanted to make sure that the cover was large enough to include that. On the front here, I'm going to put down a frame that is cut from silver matte mirror card, and I did cut out an aperture just to save myself some of that specialty paper, but I want to fill that back in, so I did die cut from just plain white cardstock so that when I lay this piece over it, everything is nice and level and flat. So I'll get the specialty paper down first, and then the piece that has my initials on it was a recent purchase of mine. I think it's probably an older release, but it's from Crafter's Companion, and it's their, I forget the name of the collection, but essentially it's large letters that are foil plates. The foiling does leave a gap in the letter though, and the gap is meant so that you can actually use the coordinating stamp to stamp a floral pattern, which then looks like it really closely intertwines and wraps around the letter. And you can stamp and color if you want, but I decided to just keep it really easy and stamp and then heat emboss. So I've got silver foil with white heat embossing for the floral image over that wraps around the letter. Really fun. I'm still kind of learning how to get consistent results with my glimmer, but that's why I like this project, because it's letting me do a little bit of everything. It's a project just for myself, so if it doesn't turn out perfect, I'm totally okay with that. So I'm bringing out my We Are Memory Keepers planner punch board, and you can see here I've already marked out the position in the punch board where I want to put my disc punch. And I've written that out, but I also like to line up my template just to make sure that I have it in the right position, because the spacing and the gaps between each position is really small, and the lettering is kind of small and can be a little bit hard to read. So I find that lining up your paper template, which is just, in my case, I just punched it out of plain old copy paper. But this is sort of a measure twice, cut once kind of sanity check for me. So now that I've seen that that's perfectly lined up, and of course, because you're making your own disc-bound planner, you can always position this however you like, space it however you like. I've seen notebooks where there's grouping of 3 a little bit closer towards one end, and then a large gap in the center, and then another grouping of 3 hole punches. So it's whatever you like, and I played around a little bit just before I got to this point to make myself a template. My cover pieces, I am going to round the outside edges, And I'm actually going to layer this up a little bit. So I've got my cover, which is pattern paper. Then I have 120-pound white cardstock and then another piece of pattern paper. And as I mentioned in the intro, I am going to do single-sided lamination of the inside covers. So they'll have a single layer of plastic over top of it, which is going to come from the laminating sheet. I am going to punch all of those individually, though, because I don't think the planner punch board can punch through super thick materials. So let me show you how I did the single-sided lamination. I've got this full laminating sheet here, which is actually quite perfect because it is 9 inches wide. Normally, let's say you were going to laminate like a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. This is 9 inches wide, so it's perfect. It leaves you a little bit of that extra plastic so that it creates a nice seal. I don't need that seal, so that's why I'm orienting this, my cover piece here, inside cover piece, so that it's right flush with that top and bottom edge because my cover is 9 inches exactly. So I'm gonna actually cut down my laminating sheet here, which I do all the time. I don't know if they recommend it or not, but I do it all the time and it seems to work just fine for me. So I'm gonna actually slide in a piece of copy paper behind my pattern paper here because, again, I don't want to seal this pattern paper in. I just want to laminate it on the one side. I don't want to get any of the lamination on the back side because on the back side, I'm actually going to put the back cover. Before I get to that, though, I've actually gonna put a clear pocket, which also is going to be made from just that leftover scrap piece of lamination that I cut off. I'm going to use a portion of that as my pocket. And again, making your own cover or notebook like this is great because you can really make this suit your needs. It can be as large or small of a pocket as you like. The reason why I like for it to be clear is because if I don't actually have anything to put in my pocket, at least I can see the entire pattern paper on the inside. So you want to separate your two laminating pieces so that you have the glossy side touching each other. And that more matte side, that's the side that actually has the adhesive. I'm going to run a little bit of repositionable Daddy tape runner here, or tape runner, and that's just going to keep my two laminating sheets together so that, because they are slick side facing, it tends to be a little slippery and they tend to kind of move around. But once I have that repositionable tape, which I can rub out later, so don't worry about that. That's why I'm using a repositionable one. I'm going to get that nice and lined up, these two pieces, and then I'm going to position that in between my pattern paper and the full laminating sheet that's going to cover my cover piece entirely. So what this achieves is that because you're putting the glossy side, which is not sticky, facing each other, that means that's going to be a pocket that won't be sealed. And instead, with the adhesive side on the top and the bottom, the adhesive portions of the pocket will get sealed to the laminating sheet and then to the pattern paper. So I'll do that again on the back side. So I'm going to trim down my pocket, which is going to be 4.5. And I did round the corners because my laminating sheets actually do have a rounded corner. And it's 4.25 by, or 4.5 by 5.25. So I'll go ahead and round that to have that match as best as possible the rounded corner that actually comes from the laminating sheet already. Then I'm going to flip this over. I've already got my back, the pattern paper from my back and side cover. I'm going to wipe everything nice and clean so it's nice and neat. Separate your two pocket pieces and then place them so that the glossy side, the non-sticky side, what would normally be kind of that nice shiny outside, put those facing each other so that they're now on the inside. So you're basically kind of reversing your laminating sheets. And that way the adhesive side's on the outside, so the bottom piece of the pocket is going to adhere to your pattern paper. The top piece of your pocket will adhere to that front lamination. And because there's no adhesive between these two sheets, because we've got the glossy side touching each other, that's going to form the pocket where you can actually slide things in. And it becomes a really nice sturdy pocket too, because on the front you have 2 layers of lamination, and it's all plastic instead of being a paper pocket. So I'm gonna make sure that, because my puppies come in and out, sometimes there's a stray puppy fur here and there, so I want to make sure to wipe that all clean. And then I'm gonna sandwich this whole thing in between 2 sheets of copy paper. Anytime I cut down my laminating sheets, I always put them between copy paper, because if you don't have your laminating sheets 100% lined up, sometimes that adhesive side is actually exposed. And if that's the case, then putting it between the copy paper means the adhesive will hit your copy paper instead of gumming up the works inside your laminator. But once I've run that through a couple times and everything is sealed, then I'll run it through without the copy paper sandwich. This still has the copy paper in the center, but that's meant so that the 2 pieces don't accidentally laminate shut together. While my laminator is on, I'm going to take it as an opportunity to laminate other things. So I've already got this bookmark that's assembled. I used the Crafter's Companion Peekaboo characters from their everyday collection, and I've got my little puppy here. I was really happy to find a piece of scrap laminating sheet that was the perfect size for this bookmark, except that I went and trimmed down what I thought was excess but is not excess. And so I took a perfectly sized piece and then I made it not the correct size, but don't worry, I'll show you how to make the bookmark later because I make a second one. This is my monthly 2-page spread, which I printed using my laser printer. And because it is laser printed, then that means you can use transfer foil, which is different from hot foiling. You can use transfer foil to run this through your laminating machine, or if you have a Mink machine, you can get your foiling done this way as an alternative if you don't have a hot foiling system. The 2 types of foil are not interchangeable, so transfer foil is very different from hot foil. Transfer foil works on the premise that there's a sticky medium that's going to hold the foil that you want to transfer. And the reason why this works with laser printed graphics or text is because toner is actually just plastic. It's not a dye or a pigment ink. It's actually a type of plastic. And so when you run that through your laminator again, it heats up and becomes sticky. And that's what grabs onto the transfer foil. So if you find, like I did, that you don't have 100% transfer, you can always move your foil around a little bit. If you see any black, cover it with a piece of the foil that hasn't transferred yet, and you might be able to get a little bit more foiling. It's not as clean and perfect as hot foiling is. What I find is that with transfer foiling, I tend to get underfoiling, where the image isn't completely foiled. With hot foiling, I tend to get overfoiling. So I haven't quite perfected either method of foiling. But again, that's why I love this project, because it's allowing me to really just pull out all of my gadgets and toys and practice techniques that, because I feel like I haven't really perfected, I don't use that often on cards that I tend to give out. And so I'm just, here's where I trim off my bookmark. Oh, what a shame. It's still a really cute bookmark, but I needed that extra little bit of plastic because that's what's going to hold it into my planner. Okay, so now that we have all of our excess foil trimmed off, I'm going to show you how to open up this pocket because right now it's sealed shut still. So you want to look for the top edge of your pocket, and it should be relatively clear that there's a air bubble that because of the differences in level between the paper and then the extra layers of plastic that form the pocket, the laminator can't get a perfect seal right up to the top of the pocket. So you should be able to see an air bubble, and that's where you are aiming to cut. What you want to do is you just want to cut through that top layer of laminating sheet. You don't want to go very deep with this. So I score very, very light marks with my little craft knife here, and then I just kind of pick at it a little bit until I can tell whether it's actually cut through far enough. I find it's way, way better to just take really light cut marks through here rather than try to go too deeply at once, because you don't want to cut through to the other side of your cover piece here. So again, just gonna, now that I have it partially open, I can see where I need to score or cut a little bit more. And there you saw me with the blue cloth just rub away that repositionable adhesive that I put there just to keep the two pocket pieces together. So do that again. I found the little air bubble. I cut right through, and then I'm looking until I can actually open the pocket, and then I'm gonna continue to take really light cuts until I get this pocket fully open from side to side. And then I'll just rub out that little bit of adhesive that I put there just to keep those extra laminating sheets together while they went through the laminator. So now that that's done, I'm going to bring out my planner punch board again and punch through this. And at this point, I'm only punching through plastic because I already punched through the cardstock. And it's, I had a little bit of trouble doing this, mostly I think because I punched a little too slowly, because later when I was punching the bookmarks, which are also, actually 2 layers of laminating sheet, I was able to get a really clean punch really easily. But here I think I was just a little bit tentative with the punch, and sometimes instead of cleanly punching all the way through, it sort of just smushed the plastic in between the punching blades, and it got a little bit caught. So, but I would definitely recommend, if you do this, punch your disc holes like I did here, where you're punching every layer as you go, as opposed to layering it up all at once. Here's where it got stuck, and it took me a pretty long time to to release these. It will work, but that's the reason to actually punch everything individually, so that you're passing through or punching through as thin of a layer as possible. Now that I've got all the layers done, I'm going to assemble. So I've got double-sided dry adhesive tape along the edges so that I can get adhesive cleared all the way to the edge. I'm using my Collall all-purpose glue in the center because this pattern paper, it's not super thin, but it's not super thick either. So the Collall all-purpose glue is great if you are working with a thinner paper that you're worried might wrinkle, because the Collall all-purpose glue is actually a solvent-based glue and not a water-based glue, so it won't absorb into the paper and wrinkle it. So it's perfect for really lightweight thin paper. This is Kaisercraft paper, which is not super lightweight, but it's not quite as thick as the cardstock that I tend to use either. So then I've got my 3 layers of both covers, so that's all complete. Now, here's the bookmark. Now, if you see the one that I'm rounding the corners on, it's got that extra bit of plastic on the left side. I originally had that on my first one too, but I trimmed it off, which you don't want to do. You want to actually leave that so that you have something to punch your disc holes into. So you can see here I've lined this up so that my kitty cat is just peeking right over the top of my page. And the reason why I'm lining it up with my page template is so that I can actually position the punches from the planner punch board and line that up with the template that I have. And that way, because my bookmark isn't the same size as my page, I can't use the exact same settings. And so this is one way that you can make a custom bookmark of any size and then get it to line up perfectly with your pages. So if you wanted your cat to be, if you're not using like a peekaboo character like mine, you may need to kind of move it around a little bit. And so just to get it looking the way that you want. And the other reason to do this is so that you can actually leverage the planner punch board and actually push my bookmark all the way against the guide rails of the punch board to make sure that I'm getting a nice straight and flush punch. So now that I have that in the position that I know is correct, I can go ahead and punch that, and it's going to line up perfectly. My bookmark is a little bit long, so I'm going to have to do another set of punches to get, it can technically fit 2 more disc holes in, but I didn't want to actually do the bottommost one because that would have punched pretty close to the bottom edge. And so ultimately I only needed to punch 1 more hole. And I decided that instead of putting that through my the punch board, I'll just use this individual punch and do it by hand. So that's always an option. It's a little hard because the punch itself is pretty small, but you can see I punched through in the one time and it went fine. So here is where I decided, well, instead of punching through that last punch, which it would have fit, but it would have left a really small edge. So I thought instead I'll just trim this off a little bit, and I'll trim it off far enough away from the bookmark so that it still maintains a nice seal, but I'm just going to take off that excess plastic so that this can fit into the planner. And so make sure I'm bringing out my tweezers, and every once in a while you see me picking something out and it's clear so you can't tell what it is, but you want to make sure that the little mushrooms that you're punching out, that you clear that out of your punch so that the next time you go to punch, it's not going to stick on you. So now I'm going to work on my divider, and I'll go ahead and position this again. And of course, I do like to just, again, do that sanity check where I make sure that my punches are in the right location. And this is going to be the front of my monthly 2-page spread. And I decided I'm not going to really theme this Halloween or Thanksgiving or anything like that. My goal was really just to use up some of the excess scraps that I have from this, I think it's from a Crafter's Companion craft box. And so I've just got some 80-pound solid color cardstock, and again, I've used combination of dry adhesive and wet adhesive. This time I'm using a PVA glue because this is 80-pound cardstock, which can take that. I mean, my PVA glue is from Line Co. pH neutral, and it's fairly low water content, but I've worked with this cardstock before, so I know it won't warp with this glue. And similar to the covers, I want a little bit of extra thickness on my dividers so that they feel a little bit substantial, and I can easily kind of identify them or tell them apart from the regular copy paper that is going to be the bulk of the rest of the notebook. And so just get some mats and layers on here, and I've got October spelled out with a Spellbinders alphabet die set that I have. You've probably heard me say it a lot, but I'm a sucker for alphabet dies, and I think having this monthly planner is a nice way of maybe bringing out all my various alphabet dies and getting them into circulation, putting them to use. This is another little fun toy that I have, which is the We Are Memory Keepers word punch board. And I'm going to spell out the word care, and I'm staggering it so that I'm going to punch this in 2 passes. The first pass, I'll punch every odd letter, so the first, the third, the fifth, etc. And then the second pass, I'll punch every even letter. And the reason why I do this, I'll link to a slower, more detailed explanation of the word punch board. But the reason I do this is because I like for my letters to be closer together than what the punch board will naturally punch if you were to just line up all of the letters in your board and punch it in one go. And so once I've punched the first pass, which is the letters C and R, I'll place the second pass letters. But instead of starting at position number 1, I start the first letter at position number 5. So that's just the only number you have to remember. The first pass starts in position 1, the second pass starts in position 5, and then you butt up all of the punches from there. And then you get a word where the letters are a little bit more closely compacted than if you were to try to punch it in one go. And again, part of the reason to create this planner myself is to customize it, but also just to use things in my craft room. And this is something that I purchased a while ago. I've had the uppercase letters for a long time now, but I picked up the lowercase letters and the numbers when they went on super sale from Joann's, not earlier this year, but it's been months, and this is the first time I'm using it. So this is another We Are Memory Keepers product. So I did go a little nutty, if you remember. I don't know if I did a haul video, but I got a lot of their punch boards when they went on sale. It was like 60-70% off. But this is the tab punch board. I'm just going to punch a bunch of tabs on this strip of paper here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find where sort of the middle portion, and there's a line that you can see, so it's it'll be obvious when you look at the board itself. It's a little hard to see on the camera. But basically, I just want the left edge of my paper here to clear that center mark, because that center mark is marking the center of the punch, but really that's punching the edge of the tab. So you'll see I scooted it over a smidge, and then I flip it over and I line up the edge with the large tab, because I'm making all large tabs here. So I've got 3 tabs on this one strip, and you could have like a full sheet of paper that you're punching your tab onto, but I'm actually cutting my tabs off. So just go ahead and trim off those tabs, and then I'm going to actually adhere this to my monthly spread here. Because there's some thickness with all the layers of colored cardstock and the page that I printed the monthly calendar on, that's also 65-pound cardstock that I put through my laser printer. So I'm going to stack a couple of layers of the tab on the inside so that it matches the thickness of the 65-pound paper that has my month printed on it, and the 80-pound colored cardstock that is decorating the outside of my divider. So that way, when this tab goes together, it's going to be nice and flush, because I'm adhering it on the bottom portion. Is going to be on the outside of those 2 pages. And it's also going to make this nice and thick and sturdy, because it's the tab that likely, as I use this, I'll grab it and fast forward to that month. So I want it to make sure that it's not flimsy, and as I grab and flip to my monthly spread, this tab will hold up. So then flipping over to the back side here, I just have a piece of scrap paper that I decided to just turn into a nice little angled pocket that I'm going to put on. This is the back. This is the other half of the monthly spread, so kind of the back of the 2-page divider, as it were. And I've just got tape along the left and the bottom edge, leaving the top and the side open. And so that is our divider complete. So now I'm actually going to set everything or assemble it into the actual rings. These rings, I think I harvested this from an old planner that I have. So if you have old planners that you've used, you can always reuse the discs. And the other thing that you can do, which I've done, is when it gets to the end of the year and planners that have pre-printed calendars for the year often go on super duper clearance because they're already printed with a calendar that's out of date. You can buy those for cheap and then just use the discs, which you can buy on their own, but sometimes they're expensive, more expensive than buying a full planner that's out of date. So here is everything in the discs, and that's only just 1 month. So I will definitely add November and December at some point, but I might take it as an opportunity to maybe introduce a new series of videos, sort of a Plan With Me series, where I decorate kind of the next month and set out my monthly spread. So we'll see. If you have any opinions on that at all, whether it's something you would like to see or would not like to see, drop me a comment and let me know. I'll factor that into my final decision. I'll probably also need to heavily factor whether I have the time to do that, but I definitely would love to know if there is any interest one way or another to see it or not see it. Okay, so now I'm working on my pen loop here, and I've got a piece of this is from Sizzix. It used to be called paper leather. I think they call it texture roll now. And what's nice about this is that it's a product that is very, very durable. It's the same thing that jeans, put their branding on and sew to kind of the back of your jeans. So this can go through the wash. It doesn't tear. It's very, very durable. And I'm using it as my pen loop for that reason, because I don't want this to just be regular paper and then eventually tear or get crushed by the pen. And it'll make a little bit more sense when you see me cut out the pieces, but basically I'm just going to cut an eye shape. And so I'm going to leave two ends where they can overlap, and that's how it will get attached to my back cover. And the center band that I'm leaving will be the actual loop that holds my pen in place. So when I'm done cutting here, I'll have essentially what looks like an I or maybe an H, I guess, if you turn it the other way around. Okay, so then I had a bunch of pencil marks, which, by the way, didn't erase all that well. So maybe mark the back of your pen loop if you're gonna make pencil marks. But that's how the piece will look. And I didn't say it, but I showed that I chose the size or the length of this piece based on how fat my pen was. So I picked the pen that I will likely use the most often, and I wrapped it around that. But in terms of, that's just the sort of the length of it, but in terms of the height, it's just 1.5 inches. So you've got 1/2 inch as your center band. That's going to be the loop that holds your pen in place, and then you have 1.5 inches on the two ends where it'll get attached to the cover of the planner. And so what I'm going to do is just double check that my favorite pen will still fit. And then I'm going to just do a little bit of a dry fitting. I want to make sure that this will clear my tab, because my tab does stick out further than the rest of the pages. And so now that I feel good about that, I'm going to use just some dry adhesive to get these two ends here to overlap and stick together so that I can work with this piece in its kind of final shape. And I did use my bone folder earlier just to soften and give that rounded edge a little bit. Now I'll be using my Big Bite Crapodile to punch a 3/16 inch hole on either end. I didn't do a very good job of centering this, but it's not the end of the world to me. So I'll, try to do a better job later if I ever make another one of these to give as a gift. But this one's just for me, so I don't mind that it's a little bit off. And what I'll do is actually, I plan to set some grommets. These are grommets because they have the little silver washer on the backside. My understanding is that's the difference between a washer and an eyelet. The eyelet doesn't have the washer on the back. And I placed my pen loop there and made a little mark so that I know where to punch through my cover. And this part was really, I was really nervous because, at this point, pretty much my whole journal is done. and here I'm punching through my cover piece, which if I didn't get it just right would mean having to make a new cover. So I was going to put adhesive to glue this down, but I decided that I think between the two eyelets that I put in, that's gonna secure it enough so that I don't actually have to glue this down. And the reason why I had to take multiple bites was because my eyelet is actually a little bit slightly larger than 3/16 of an inch, and so I needed to widen the hole a little bit in order for this to fit in here. Now, it's at this point that I decide I will not use the washer that I generally use when I set eyelets. And the reason is because I've got a lot of thickness going on. The cover has 2 layers of pattern paper, a layer of plastic, and the 120-pound paper. Then it's got to clear through the paper leather or texture roll, which is also 2 layers. So by the time I have everything set in here, and I keep widening the holes ever so slightly because it was fitting through before, but the papers were curling up a little bit, and that was actually introducing even more bulk. So I wanted to clear it enough so that it's still a very snug fit, but not so much that the paper was curling. And so once I got that in, the post on the eyelet, it definitely cleared all of those layers, but I was really worried that if I added the washer on top of that, then it wouldn't actually clamp. It wouldn't have enough metal to actually clamp down completely. So I made the executive decision to leave the washer out and then set it, and it worked perfectly. I mean, maybe it would have worked perfectly even with the washer, but I'm glad I left it out because I wasn't worried about the We Are Memory Keepers, the crocodile setting the eyelet. I was just worried about it not having enough metal to clamp down cleanly, and if it didn't clamp down cleanly, I don't know that there's a way to fix that. I would basically just have to make that whole back cover again. So here I'm using these eyelets to kind of form double duty and be a little bit of an elastic closure. It's an interesting idea, but not super successful because the eyelet is large, and it's so easy for these little, even having those barbed ends on the elastic cord isn't really enough to keep it in there. And so every time I kind of pull the elastic open, it does have a tendency, once there's a lot of slack in the elastic, there's a lot of tendency for that to just slip right through those eyelet holes. That's okay. I mean, the main purpose was to make a pen loop, and if I could have it do double duty as a closure, so you can see that dropped right out already. So I probably won't use the elastic closure, but I still think everything turned out really well. And so here's a final flip through. I've got my clear pocket with just some cut aparts from the paper pad, and every month will be an opportunity for me to just pull out some other supplies, maybe some things that I've purchased but haven't had a chance to use yet, and make my 2-month spread so I can decorate the front and the back, and maybe even make a new bookmark because this one matches perfectly with my October divider. But essentially it's I've just got a couple of checklists there, which is my checklist for what I need to do for every video, and then just a ton of blank paper so that I can sketch out ideas, write down notes, do some brainstorming, things like that. And again, this is my little closure here, but it's not perfect. I mean, if you really want to do a closure, I wouldn't do it this way with such a large eyelet. I would punch a smaller hole that's just like a little bit bigger than your elastic band, and that's gonna work a lot better. But it was worth trying, and that elastic is still perfectly good to use for something else. So that's my project for today. I hope you enjoy it. And again, if there is any interest in seeing a monthly kind of plan with me where I decorate my monthly 2-page spread, let me know if you do or do not want to see something like that on my channel, and I'll definitely take that into consideration. Until my next video, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Thanks. Bye.